Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make the best sticky buns. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and as somebody who personally really enjoys the complicated and more scientific side of baking, I have dedicated myself to sharing the best and most simplified versions of desserts that you might have been intimidated by before. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the absolute best sticky buns, so let's go ahead and get started. Now to start, you're going to want to grab a heat-proof bowl or a heat-proof measuring cup, and we're going to combine 1 cup of whole milk and 1/3 cup of water. Heat these in your microwave until the temperature is between 105 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit. If this is too hot, you're likely to kill your yeast, and if it's too cool, the yeast will never activate. We'll add this to the bowl of a stand mixer, and we'll sprinkle 2½ teaspoons of active dry yeast over top. And I like to add just a pinch of sugar to help boost the growth of that yeast. We'll stir these ingredients together and let them sit for about 5 minutes or until the yeast is foamy. I'm using my trusty stand mixer to make today's recipe, but if you don't have one, this entire recipe can be made by hand, and I've included instructions on how to do so in the printable recipe. And once that's nice and foamy, we're going to add 5 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter. We'll also add 1 large egg plus 1 large egg yolk, and these should both be at room temperature. This extra egg yolk helps to enrich the sticky buns and make the dough more tender and a little bit more melt in your mouth. I would not recommend using 2 whole eggs here, as that would actually end up drying out the sticky buns a little bit. We'll add 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, and we're going to need quite a bit of all-purpose flour for today's recipe. You're going to need about 4 to 5 cups, or maybe even a little bit more when all is said and done. However, to start, we're just going to add 2 cups of flour into the bowl. Now mix everything together until it's really well combined. If you're using your stand mixer today, you're going to want to fit it with a dough hook attachment. Turn your mixer to low speed, and we are going to gradually add additional flour until we get the dough to a consistency where it is clinging to itself. It's still slightly sticky, it's going to be a little bit tacky to the touch, but it's clinging to itself and pulling away from the sides of the bowl. This is going to take about another 2 to 3 cups of flour. If your dough hook has trouble reaching the sides of your mixer, it might need a little bit of encouragement and a little mixing by hand in the beginning. With many yeast recipes, you'll find that a range of flour is listed in the recipe rather than a precise amount. This is because the amount of flour that is needed to achieve the perfect consistency of your dough will vary from kitchen to kitchen. It's starting to cling to itself, but it's still not pulling away from the sides of the bowl, so we're going to add a little bit more. We're almost there, still need a little bit more flour. So I've added almost 5 cups at this point, and I think we're finally at the consistency we're looking for. If I touch it, it's a little bit tacky, but it's not coming off on my finger, it's clinging to itself, so we have reached the correct consistency. Now at this point, all we want to do is continue to knead it for about another 5 minutes on low speed, or until the dough is nice and smooth and elastic. All right, this is beautiful. So now you're going to want to grab yourself a nice big bowl. You want one that's large enough for this dough to double in it. And you're gonna wanna just lightly oil it. I've greased mine with a little bit of olive oil, and we'll transfer our dough to this bowl. Drop that in there. Okay, now make sure you turn this dough over because you want every surface of the dough to be lightly coated with a little bit of that olive oil. Make sure I get the sides here. I'm gonna cover this with a clean towel, and I'm just gonna set it in a warm place to rise until it's doubled in size. For me, this usually takes anywhere between 1 and 2 hours. While your dough is rising, we can head over to the stovetop where we're going to prepare our sticky glaze that makes these sticky buns so nice and gooey. Now, you're going to start with 10 tablespoons of unsalted butter and drop these in a medium-sized saucepan. Add 3/4 cup of firmly packed dark brown sugar, a 1/2 cup of heavy cream, and most sticky bun recipes out there use honey, but I much prefer the taste of pure maple syrup instead. I'm going to be adding 1/3 cup of maple syrup, but if you prefer, you can substitute honey. This stuff is expensive, so we are getting every last drop in there. Now just add 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and we're going to turn our stovetop heat to medium and just stir constantly until the butter is melted. So about the same time that your butter is melted, you'll notice the mixture will start bubbling. Once it starts bubbling, you'll want to stir constantly, allowing it to continue to bubble for about 5 minutes or until it's thickened. This is looking pretty good, so we'll take it off the heat, and we're going to want to stir in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We're going to be baking today's sticky buns in a 13x9 baking pan, so you can go ahead and pour this glaze right into that pan. Once again, we don't want to waste any. Now you'll need 1 cup of coarsely chopped pecans, and just scatter these evenly over your glaze. Set that pan aside so it can cool down a little bit, and by this time your dough should be almost finished rising, so we can go ahead and prepare the filling. Now in a separate bowl, you're going to want to combine a 1/2 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, and an 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Just going to whisk these together until they're well combined. Now you're also going to need 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter for the filling as well, and you want this to be really soft so it's easy to spread over your dough. If yours isn't soft enough, you can pop it in the microwave for a couple of seconds. It's fine if it's a little bit melty. So once your dough has doubled in size, you can go ahead and uncover it, and you're going to want to gently deflate it. Turn this out onto a clean, lightly floured surface. And I like to use a rolling pin to roll this out into a 10 by 20 inch rectangle. Grab your softened butter, and we're going to spread that evenly over the dough, leaving about a 1/2 inch perimeter around the edges. Grab that filling you just prepped and sprinkle that evenly over the butter. I'm so excited to eat these. Starting with one of your longer ends, roll this into a tight log. We'll cut this into 12 even slices. These will get a little bit flattened when you cut them, so I just like to gently round them in my hand before placing them cut side down in our prepared baking dish. Cover these with a clean towel, and you're going to want to let them rise again in a warm place until they've increased in size by about 50%. For me, this is usually about 30 minutes. Meanwhile, you can preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Once they've risen again, you'll want to remove that towel and take these over to your 350 degree Fahrenheit oven, where they're going to need to bake for about 30 minutes or until baked through. So as soon as these come out of the oven, I like to take a knife and run it along the edge of the pan, just to make sure the rolls aren't sticking to the sides. And now you're going to want to invert it onto a heat-proof serving tray. Now remember, this is very hot, and you do not want to get any of that scalding hot liquid on yourself, so always flip it away from yourself. Now remember, these sticky buns are super hot right now, so let them cool for about 20 minutes before digging in. It smells amazing in my house right now, guys. And that is how you make these amazingly gooey, best you've ever had in your life, sticky buns. Thank you guys so much for watching my video, and I can't wait to hear how you like this one. I'll see you next time. Oh man. They're amazing.